Well, you're being, very close, yeah.
By the way, it's recording.
Okay, let's kick ass.
See, but that's good candid interaction too. So, where you're not. I didn't tell you I was filming, so it kind of lets you.
Hey man, what's up? This is Ayin Thropos right here. You're on the unique.
If you can see inside your soul, those are love. If you can see inside your miracle, and if you can feel the words I'm sending you with love, if you can feel the heart-struck miracle.
And let me tell you the final secret of this. Right. Ayin Thropos. Another episode.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god, Nancy. Nancy, do you realize how much close this motherfucker is? Jesus Christ, Nancy. Nancy, roll up your window. Nancy, roll up the window. Baby, it's putting a light on us.
So, when on the subject of the black goo, one of the most interesting things about it is that, this whole tradition of we see these Merlin top figures, these castle courtiers, and all the intrigue and everything like that happened in these palaces. Well, come to find out, the black goo was present back then, possibly even as far back as ancient Egypt, and it's been depicted in coins and stuff like this. And basically, the way the narrative goes, I'm not here to tell you what to believe, what I believe, or anything like this. We're just talking about some very heavy narratives, and that is the black goo. Now we fast forward to the present. And it's the idea that these nanoparticulates are being sprayed aerosol-wise into our atmosphere by, you guessed it, chemtrails, right? Effing chemtrails. And so we all know this to be true. I mean, Prince, he raised the alarm about chemtrails, and of course he's no longer with us today. Brilliant man. And so anyway. That's the idea put forth by Howard Calzavella and Kara St. Louis in their book, Deadly Assimilation, Silent Assimilation, Deadly Imagination. Okay, it's excellent book, excellent book. And it really takes it to the perimeters of human thinking. In other words, it's one thing for some of these people to be, involved in these conspiracy theories where they're finding out that these, banksters have, done some cheating, or somebody, the government's going to do this or that. But there's other people, that just get in more deeper into the water. And so you're looking at, non-human intelligences and stuff like that. And, oh, Frida. Wonder, oh my gosh.
Okay, not in the house.
Okay.
Containers recovered from Thule Island
which resulted in the deaths of 25 Marconi scientists. I think I've said 40, but I'm wrong. It's only 25. Only 25. So we're dealing with these things. So let's get a little bit further on with the Scuttlers, right? This is a hand drawing by a witness of a scuttler on your head. It's called a scuttler on this person's head because it looks like a spider but moves like a crab. That's why it scuttles.
And wondering, what's really going on with all this stuff. Okay, well, so that's when we run into these extreme ideas, and then we see that it has a mixing and an intercommingling with high technology. So that's very interesting, these prospects. So anyway, just summarizing the deal with Miles's video, and then talking about this black goo and this AI and this interdimensional warfare, that we're, in that narrative we're under right now. And then the only thing that would be left to look at that might just scare the shit out of you is the goddamn Scuttlers, huh? That's it, the Scuttlers. We is the supposed transdimensional creatures. This is a subject that's being taken very seriously by some very, very forward-thinking people and people who've been investigating this stuff for like decades. That's Miles Johnston. He's got a very prestigious program, and there's millions of people worldwide that go to the Basis Project for their news, and it's for a reason. They're convicted, and so that's why we're commenting on this video. It's just because of the implications it has for mankind. This isn't just some woo-woo wow stuff. Granny, did you see that? They get down to brass tacks. And so there's this idea of the Scuttlers. The Scuttlers. 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 And the idea of this is just like a big fucking spider. Like a big spider from Mars, like about this big. And it's really made out of some, it's not transhuman, but it's more than this kind of nano. It's supposedly made out of titanium, but it exists on another dimension or something like this. It's a robot or something like that. But there's been reports of these. You don't have one in your home more than likely. But if you work at the local radio station or maybe the local power plant or something like that, you might have one on top of your head. It's an interdimensional type of creature, and they seem to reside around these high voltage transmitters for like radio stations, and also high the nodes as far as your electrical grid system.
The whole point about John Irwin's data that they got in 1959, and he was only one team up, obviously there's maybe been others doing similar stuff elsewhere, is that they didn't get all the information. They got a lot of it, they got some of it, but they didn't have the safeguards, they didn't have the protection mechanisms to use this technology, which means when they've been using this technology, this black goo or originated stuff and all that, they've been doing it without necessary safeguards, and they've been playing with fire, and they've been playing with stuff they don't fully understand, and therefore it's been bad news. Right. The point is that Chris Thomas came up with some information on these scuttlers, these things which are in your head, to quote the song. They are man-made from materials that are copied from ET sources, back-engineered. This is his text. The body and legs of these things is made from a type of titanium which is energy responsive. In other words, when a suitable form of energy is put through the components, they become energized to a point where they pass just outside the human senses. They become invisible to the human eye. That's very important, because you get about 3 seconds when you perceive a scuttler. It will take about 3 seconds before you don't see it anymore. It's still there, but it just tells you it isn't. It sort of masks itself in the same way that a lot of these so-called reptilian shapeshifters are actually reptilian, but they have some kind of field which they present, which makes them look human, which sometimes fails. And a lot of it's failing in this era, in other words, right now, in these months and days, where other individuals are able to see so-called fully shape-shifted reptilians, and their ability to maintain an illusion of humanity to us is beginning to fail. Okay, back to Chris Thomas. The internal electronic components do not all become invisible, but those that don't are shielded from view by this titanium casing. Now, I'm now going to go on to an extremely insidious set of paintings that the staff at Sky Television painted in 2009. Now, the whole point of these images is to give you an indication that whatever is happening is accessing our very thought construction, the way we actually construct our thoughts, images, and how we perceive things. And I believe that this was nefarious activity at Sky Television, where somebody wanted to see how far their experiment was going. They were testing, they were nefariously checking out how far this technology had accessed into the consciousness of the staff at Sky Television, and likewise the BBC and all other communication systems. What we're dealing with here is a predatory intelligence accessing our communication systems to actually engineer or access our consciousness, so we then create a reality based on the Schrodinger's cat syndrome and the young split beam experiment stuff, that if they can control our percept, the actual people, the cognitive people involved in broadcasting can be controlled in some way or other, the predatory parasitic enemy that is accessing and dealing with us would be able to take control and get us to create a reality which in itself is a false reality. So our cognitive abilities would be affected in that regard.
And we looked at what Miles had on that recently, and also after that we had the Scuttlers, which are these terrifying like spiders. They look like spiders, but they walk like a crab. In other words, they're like scuttling along, you know. But you definitely, due to the artist's rendering of these things, different people who have been experiencers and who had, you know, drawings, either they did the drawings or some professional artists did the drawings. They're just some really ugly looking little obnoxious things, except it's big effing spider. The third thing, you know, we got to talk about is, because in relation to these Scuttlers, you mentioned that they are somehow thriving on these power stations and these radio stations, and where there's a lot of electromagnetism and electricity.
So here back. Right, let's go. So there they are. Now what I did was I participated in this. I thought that we were all asked at Sky one sunny day in June, I think, of 2009, to actually paint something on blank white tiles, which were then placed, you can just see to the right of frame there, that these were placed in, you know, oh, what a nice happy time. Now, what I'm talking about here, that these paintings have got a load of cognitive components to each individual painting. No matter what painting you've done, there are aspects within those which are common. This is very important. I'm talking about things which have got lots of tentacles. You got a big bug-eyed thing with one eye and like spider legs coming from it. Now, the thing about this is that these are signatures of jinn activity. When jinn intrude into our reality, the initial jinn are energetic beings who have been on Earth before we arrived. They would claim, and this is all in the written literature, that they have got more rights to this domain than we do, and we live as mud, that's to say, as physical matter, whereas they are interdimensional intelligent beings, civilized intelligent beings who've been invaded, and we've got a parasite with us, which is they don't want, so they want rid of us. It's perfectly logical, but this is what they look like. You'll see on the bottom left there a whole pile of like tentacles, as Rosemary Ellen Guiley would say, things with lots of legs. Now, the thing about all this is that nobody can claim the high ground in terms of being right or knowing everything. I'm simply laying out some information here and giving some basic conclusions based on straight logic, like an engineering problem. Here we have the hand logo. Here we have houses, but the house has got asymmetry. It's if you then look at the Simpsons. Now I'll show some close-up pictures of the Simpsons. What you look there is a big smiley face, and if you look at the, for instance, the round, there's the logo, the smiley face, and look at the eyes of the smiley face. We'll get through some of these. Right. Now look at these two common pictures. You've got something coming through a portal. You've got a spiral of dots in the hand. Now that's interesting because that's the whole point of the hand logo of bases. Now David Griffin was the guy who got the artist who created the bases logo, and it's the hand symbol. So again, you've got a hand in this.
Very forward-thinking people and people who've been investigating this stuff for like decades. That's Miles Johnston. He's got a very prestigious program, and there's millions of people worldwide that go to the Basis Project for their news, and it's for a reason. They're convicted, and so that's why we're commenting on this video. It's just because of the implications it has for mankind. This isn't just some woo-woo wow stuff. Granny, did you see that? They get down to brass tacks. And so there's this idea of the Scuttlers. The Scuttlers. 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 And the idea of this is like a big fucking spider. Like a big spider from Mars, like about this big. And it's really made out of some, it's not transhuman, but it's more this kind of nano. It's supposedly made out of titanium, but it exists on another dimension or something like this. It's a robot or something like that. But there's been reports of these. You don't have one in your home more than likely. But if you work at the local radio station or maybe the local power plant or something like that, you might have one on top of your head. It's an interdimensional type of creature, and they seem to reside around these high voltage transmitters for like radio stations, and also high the nodes as far as your electrical grid system. And they get up there in that main transducer box and just sit on top of all those volts and amps and all that deadly stuff, and not because they're juicing up on electricity or powering up. It has to do with communication, and so that communication of the electrical grid leads us into our third and final topic. The first topic was, of course, black goo, and we looked at what Miles had on that recently, and also after that we had the Scuttlers, which are these terrifying like spiders. They look like spiders, but they walk like a crab. In other words, they're like scuttling along, But you definitely, due to the artist rendering of these things, different people who have been experiencers and who had, drawings, either they did the drawings or some professional artists did the drawings. They're just some really ugly looking little obnoxious things, except it's big effing spider. The third thing, we got to talk about is, because in relation to these Scuttlers, we mentioned that they are somehow thriving on these power stations and these radio stations, and where there's a lot of electromagnetism and electricity.
And you look at those spiral dots. These are, and then the other one onto the right, you've got lots of circular objects and spirals. And also look at the bottom right of that picture. If you look at the bottom right, you've got something with tentacles coming through on the right. Now, the point about it is these pictures are common. There's the big pussy cat. I've got a big pussy cat. And again, look at the smiley faces. And then you got the KISS logo in there. KISS FM. Now, I created KISS FM along with two other very important colleagues. One has passed, left us. And the KISS FM that we're talking about, we broadcast 1 million watts into Belfast. And now we have a situation with the KISS logo, because Sky Television is intricately connected with the pirate stations of the Irish pirate stations. Murdoch is the guy who simply was pulled in to actually make it happen, and he's trying to get it back, but he's not getting it back because he's not telling people what we need to know. But this is a Murdoch paper, and he's telling us what we need to know. So if Murdoch tells us what we need to know and educates us, he might get his Sky Television back. Anybody making connections here? But look at those multiple eyes coming through. Look at the tentacles. Look at something spiraling towards you. Even the little kid on the bottom left, he's smiling and he's saying hi. But look, there's the sun. The sun is shining. And again, the one at the top right, smiley kid. But the smile, look at the spade. If you look at the flower on the right, it's got the stalk of the flower looks very like the spade. Look at the ball on the left. Again, there's a spade there. If I was remote viewing testing people, I'd say we've scored virtually about a 98% success in this particular experiment. And that's what I'm nailing. These are old pictures, 2009. But this is an indication that somebody is really messing with our heads here in a major broadcaster. And as I said, I've said this on many occasions in the past, but I'm saying it in clear, plain sight right now. So let's move on with some of these pictures. Again, look at the Simpsons on the left. The Simpsons on the left are completely bloody mesmerized. Again, all the look at the smiley face at the bottom. Bloody mesmerized. Look at the eyes, completely bloody psyched out. Look at the thing on the left. Again, it's a load of lots of something with lots of tentacles. Then if you look at the weighing scale on the right, the weighing scale on the right, again, has the smiley face. It's got all these ingredients of, again, if you look at the pussycat. Now, the thing about the eyes of the pussycat is they actually look like flying saucers, like UFOs. I mean, and then, again, the spikes of the pussycat's whiskers. Now at the top is a butterfly. Anybody heard of the Monarch mind control program? The Monarch butterfly? Is somebody operating the Monarch mind control program through our broadcasters? Now I actually thought, I think something's going on here. I'm going to make a picture which is going to beat this, and I'm going to show that I'm different. No, I'm not. My picture showed Radio Caroline. But look at the lines again. I'm drawing exactly the same situation. With the sun, I've got something with a squiggly, like a spider or something like that. So lots and lots of things happening here which are extremely alarming. Again, if you look at the shape of the ship is again like that smiley face with other things. I mean, look at the thing at the left in the middle. Bloody flying saucer with a creature, a monster with a big eye. This is what's in the minds of the subconscious of people at Sky Television in 2009. What the hell is going on here? Well, that's what's going on here. Non-human cyborg unit. Shortly after I was fired at Sky, because I was tracking this stuff, and it really pissed a few people off, and it was good fun because anyway, that's a different thing. This sponsor, brilliant, great, good people. Let's do something like that. Television, well, that's a commercial. Non-human cyborg units is something which James Casbolt sent me a very detailed. In 2011, he sent me a very detailed medical document which indicated an awful lot of situations when you make these cyborg units. That's to say, what the Germans were looking at, they had a problem when they were making these transhumanized creatures, devices, is that the human brain and the physical hardware, the robot bit on the left, interfacing that with the nerves, interfacing that with the flesh, had lots of rejection issues. Now, this has been one of the big problems. So when they create synthetic flesh and they create the synthetic being and the non-human cyborg unit, they suffer illnesses just like any other biological thing, like us would. And so they, this document that was, document which was presented to me was describing a vaccine which was used on these non-human cyborg units, so that if they got illnesses wherever they were, remember we're talking off-world and off-planet, some kind of other world that this is happening on, that they would get sick, so they had to have these particular things to help cure these cyborgs who would get sick. Now the point was, at that time, it was clear to me that this was a fake. There were certain attributes of the document which looked as if there was a signature at the end of it, which I looked up, and it was clearly from another completely different declassified document from the year 2000. So it was abundantly clear that whoever gave that document through Casbolt, and then that person we understand could be Irish Lincoln. Irish Lincoln was one of James Casbolt's contacts, allegedly in the NSA or some agency or other, which was giving him a lot of information. So I rejected that document as being a fake. However, many years later, the original version of that document was sent to me by an individual from the United States, which I will be quoting a little bit of it shortly. So we're talking about pre-flood man technology. Now, the thing is, here we have at Peasmore, a little base in Berkshire, and they're running off these aliens. Now, my information is that in vitro fertilization, IVF treatment, was actually pioneered in this country to make this stuff work in the first place. So IVF, the whole aspect of human biology being created to create these programmed life forms, these beings. Now, one of the things which Irwin was very clear about is that the soul, the energetic being, your energy thing, that your soul, we call it the soul, that does not enter the body until the pineal gland reaches a certain level of maturity, and then it sings. It sends a signal to say that this body, this unit, is now ready for occupation by a human being. The problem is that due to the chemicals as designed, and the genetic engineering of our food is designed to make that pineal gland not sing properly. So the wrong energy, the wrong soul goes into that human body. And that is why, as described by Jane Shattuck when she spoke here in Wiltshire during the summer, that when the wrong being goes into the wrong energy, which is programmed to work in a particular life form, a right kind of body, goes into the wrong one, it wakes up and it's in the wrong body. And the first signatures of that going wrong was when females programmed to go into a female body end up in a male body. And likewise, this is what Jane is basically saying, you end up trapped in the wrong body. This is because, which we're led to believe, that the pineal gland is being deliberately interfered with so that the wrong soul goes into the wrong body. Thereby, the basic point of these predatory ETs, these creatures, is to prevent human souls ever being able to actually occupy a human body ever again.